1874 Preview Show.
Hello, welcome to the 1874 match preview show. It's Nottingham Forest against Aston Villa on Sunday, and myself, Dan Bardell and Dave Reed are here to preview said game. Apologies for being late. It was actually my fault because I was stuck on a phone call that I couldn't get out of, and then Dave and I have just done half a show to absolutely nobody because our software works so well. So we were told we were live, we were doing the show, and we weren't live, which was brilliant. I felt a little bit like Ron Burgundy doing that. I don't believe you, but I'm not. I should say though, Dave, I shouldn't be apologising for being late because I am wearing Tim Sherwood's jumper, and I do feel a sense of power when I wear this jumper. I feel like I walk with an extra spring in my step. I've got a bit more confidence. I just found it in the drawer. Forgot I even had it, and was like, oh, brilliant! I'll put this on. Did you rate the Tim Sherwood apparel?
I feel like that's coming through on the screen as well. You know, you've got your chest puffed out, standing, sitting a little bit taller in your seat. I can feel that. I can feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan Bardell's not in a hole. Aston Villa are in a hole. That's the kind of thing Tim Sherwood would say. Absolutely loved Tim, by the way. Not the best manager in the world, but that time was always very, very entertaining, wasn't it, Dave? But brighter times for Villa than when Tim Sherwood were there, because Villa are in the midst of an excellent run and go to the City Ground on Sunday with every chance of taking 3 points, Dave. And kind of, it's weird at the moment because we're actually closer to going up to first than we are to falling down to sixth, even though we're fifth. So that's a great place to be at.
Yeah, the table looks amazing right now, doesn't it? And I think
Let's get it up. Let's get the table up, Dave.
Do you know what? Let's see it, shall we, in all its glory.
Come on, Lee.
All the prep that's gone into it. Look how good that looks, by the way. It looks great, doesn't it? And over, not quite a third of the way through, over a quarter of the way through the season now. And things have just started magnificently well. And even, last weekend against Luton, we didn't really get out of second or third gear, really. It felt like it was a very comfortable afternoon's work for Villa last Sunday. And the table looks great. And, Manchester United not doing particularly well, above Brighton. I'm sure Newcastle will continue to push for those positions. And we've put ourselves in a great space right now in terms of the fixtures that we've got coming up as well. You'd think that we're going to be in the mix towards the end of November, start of December. And then, we'll have more players coming back from injury and we're set up for the rest of the season, really.
Yeah, with Newcastle playing Arsenal this weekend, if we can beat Forest and Newcastle drop points, there is a chance to make that buffer even greater. So it is a big opportunity going into Sunday. Because like you say, Manchester United and Chelsea are a little bit in the wilderness. I'd back us to finish ahead of them at the moment. So creating a gap between us and Newcastle would be pretty tasty because Tottenham are going really well. I've been saying most of the season that I think the top three will be Manchester City, Arsenal and Liverpool. In what order? I don't know. Tottenham have surprised me with how good they've been. They've got off to an exceptional start to life under Postecoglou, and he deserves all the credit in the world because to turn them around to what they've been is absolutely incredible. And then we're probably we are the next best team because we're fit. So if we could create that gap between us and Newcastle got a few injuries at the moment. We've had injuries all season, but Newcastle, the injuries are starting to pile up. They smashed Man U in the week in the Carabao Cup, but they played about 5 left backs in that game. So if we can create a little buffer between us and them, that's going to be really, really crucial. And like you said, the fixtures aren't bad for us. And then we've got to play Spurs as well, which is a game I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, look, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of vibes at Tottenham right now, and I'm just going to reserve judgment. Everybody's kind of jumping on the Ange bandwagon, and yeah, he's a good manager and a great coach. I'm just kind of waiting for that sticky moment for Spurs because it will come, and then it's about how they cope with that and how they rotate their team. So yeah, I'm not fully kind of on the Ange bandwagon like everybody else seems to be at the moment. I'm just reserving judgment. I think a lot of vibes, a lot of positive vibes, and I'm just waiting for that sticky patch to come for Spurs.
Yeah, they've played some good teams. In fairness, they drew with Arsenal, didn't they? They beat Liverpool, albeit fortuitously, really, with a terrible offside decision and a late own goal. But they're going to have some tougher games to come, including us. So I mean, we are on a pretty nice run of fixtures at the moment. Home form, absolutely incredible, unbelievable. Away form, not quite as good. What have Villa got to do to go to the City Ground and get 3 points on Sunday? Because Forest aren't in the best of form themselves, actually.
No, they're not. It's interesting. I mean, you compare going to Nottingham Forest this time around to going to Nottingham Forest last time around,
Christ.
and it was just chalk and cheese, total mess. Didn't really know. Looked like we were going to score, and eventually did through a kind of long range effort, and it was just a bit of a shocking night all round. And now you go to Nottingham Forest this season, and it's a completely different story. I think, weirdly, I mean, Steve Cooper seems to go through a month where he's kind of not under pressure, and then a month where he's under pressure. And we go into Forest this time around in a period where things are turning a little bit against him. They spent again in the summer. They're on a kind of, I think it's maybe, I think I maybe read 6 games without a win, but I'm happy to be corrected on that. But they're not playing particularly well. They had home games. You think of the Luton at home game, and I think they played Burnley and Brentford as well. And the supporters, I think, not running out of patience, but I think they expect a little bit more from their team, I think, this season. And it's a team that's gone through different kind of stages. Last season when they came up, obviously Steve Cooper did an amazing job to even get them up in the first place. And then last season when they came up, they tried to start the season the way they played in the Championship, quickly realised that wasn't going to be able to be sustainable, and then they changed and played a little bit deeper, and results eventually started to turn. And then again, he tried to make them a little bit more expansive. They had a few injuries, and again, that didn't work. And then right at the end of the season, they had to revert back to kind of defensive first football. But it was their home form that really enabled them to stay up last season, which is why, despite them being in a bit of rocky form, it's very hard to go there. Their crowd, when it's on form, is absolutely fantastic, and the crowd can get them over the line. And I think that's kind of what's been lacking so far in their home games this season. Perhaps the crowd have gone into this year expecting a little bit more, and the team haven't quite delivered yet, and they've got a ridiculous list of injuries again. But I do think if we can quieten the crowd, I think that would put more pressure on the players. And I think if we can start the game well, restrict them, create a few chances, maybe score early, I think there's a possibility that, again, the crowd might fall away from the players a little bit.
Yeah, I think you've summed up a few things really, really, really nicely there. I think I follow a few Forest pages because I've done some work at Forest for Sky, and they're saying that City Ground isn't the place it was to go at the end of last season when teams would fear going there. The atmosphere isn't the same. I mean, me personally, I don't think Steve Cooper should really be under any pressure. The job he did to keep them up last season with 100 new players coming through the door is absolutely incredible. And they actually started the season pretty well. I was watching them and thinking they're a good outfit. I felt they responded well to Brendan Johnson leaving as well. I've seen Hudson-Odoi have good games. I've seen Alanga look lively in a few games as well. They've just kind of lost their way in the last few weeks, but I do think much of that is to do with the Wanye being injured, because he was on an incredible run of goal scoring form at the back end of last season and the start of this season. So they've kind of lost their focal point, and we've seen with Villa previously. If you have a game like that Luton game where you're 2-0 up and you chuck it away, I remember Villa against Stoke in the year we were fighting for the Champions League under Martin O'Neill. That game really set us back. A few years ago, we were 2-0 up against Wolves and we lost 3-2, and we conspired to lose 5 games in a row. Now, that kind of result can really haunt players for a few weeks and can knock confidence. Now, obviously, I want Villa to come and take full advantage of that, because I don't think Forest have been the same in the lead up to that, and probably after. But at some point, I do think it will turn for Nottingham Forest, because I think they've got some good players, and I do think Steve Cooper's a really, really good manager.
Yeah, I agree. And we talk about the 100 players coming in last summer. I think they signed something like 13 players again in the summer.
Yeah, too much again.
And again, they're trying to kind of upgrade themselves this year, so they're not. So they're trying to avoid being a bottom 6 club. Really, they're trying to take that next step to becoming a kind of safe mid-table team. And they have bought seemingly quite well. I like Murillo at centre-back. He seems to have settled in well, and he's good on the ball, and he's something that we'll have to be careful of on Sunday.
He is.
I really like Sangare as well. I think he is a top-quality player, been on the radar of Champions League clubs over the last couple of years. It's Forest who've managed to get him in, but I think he's taking time to settle in and kind of really adjust to the Premier League. Dominguez in midfield, they got him from Bologna. I think he's settled in really well. I think he's probably been the most impressive of Forest's summer signings. And then in the forward positions, Callum Hudson-Odoi started the season well, but again, he's kind of struggled with injury a little bit. And like you say, Awunyi has been a real miss for them. He came back against Liverpool. I think he played the last 20 minutes or so. I think if he's fit, he starts. They lost Chris Wood really late towards the build-up of that Liverpool game, which meant essentially they didn't really have any strikers. They had to revert to 5 at the back, and Alanga played most of the game up front. And then they looked a little bit better when Awunyi came on, because he's a bit of a focal point for them. It enabled Alanga to kind of revert to his preferred position out wide. So they did look better, but then the game was gone really by that point against Liverpool. So I think he will make a difference for them, because I think he will start. And I think that will be a big lift, not just for the team, but for the crowd as well, when they see Awunyi in the starting 11. So having him back, I don't think Morgan Gibbs-White has quite hit the heights that he's shown flashes. I think he's I really like him. I think he's a top quality player. He has been a bit streaky, and I think he will eventually hit the heights that I think he's capable of. I'm sure a lot of people think he's capable of as well. But maybe he's kind of suffering a little bit with the absence of Brennan Johnson, just trying to find who he can dovetail with a little bit more. You know, he formed a great partnership with Brennan Johnson last year. He's now gone. So maybe he's just trying to find his feet in that front, who he can kind of pair up with this year. So they've got some dangerous players, Nottingham Forest. And I think, again, it's one of those teams that I think will probably, from their point of view anyway, they'll hope that they can get better as the season goes on. And you hope for Steve Cooper, because I agree, he's a great head coach, that he's able to manage to turn their form around.
Not sure everyone can hear me, because I'm getting some strange messages on my screen saying that my bandwidth is low. So, Dave, can you give me a nod if you can hear me, just so I know?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
You've got me. That's good. Let me know in the chat if there's any problems with my stream. The messages seem to have disappeared now. There seemed to be a brief interruption for me there. Interesting what you said about Gibbs-White, because I really, really like him. I think, again, you've hit the nail on the head with what you're saying. I think him and Brennan Johnson last season, they kind of carried Forest on their back. They took the pressure as young players. I think they really took the pressure of that relegation battle, and they came through. And they weren't the reason they stayed up. They were a massive contributing factor into why Forest stayed up. And then they had Awunyi who was in the goals as well, which ultimately did keep them. I think you're right. I think, no disrespect to Chris Wood, because he's been a good Premier League player over the years, but he's not the type of striker that I think suits Gibbs-White's game to link up with. So he's lost Brennan Johnson, who I think is an exceptional player. I really like Brennan Johnson, absolutely rapid and a decent finisher as well. So I think at the moment, Cooper probably hasn't got the parts around Gibbs-White yet, which is, again, he's having to build new players in. But I think when Alanga gets up to speed, I think Hudson-Odoi gets up to speed. You know, he's saying about the injuries. I can't even remember who's injured at the moment. There's so many players injured for Forest, as always. Maybe a criticism of Forest. You've mentioned Murillo, who they've brought in. They are still pretty reliant at the back on players that, you know, got them promoted in the Championship. They've had a high turnover of players in midfield and attack, and even goalkeeping. They've had loads of goalkeepers over the last few years since they've been back in the Premier League. But that defence has largely remained unchanged. Right? Maybe they haven't brought enough Premier League quality at the back.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, Murillo, I think, is the one that's settled in quite well. That he's kind of been partnering Willy Bolly or Niakate when they've played three. But I mean, Joe Worrell is still there. I think he's maybe had injury issues as well. Yeah, McKenna as well. But I think, you know, they've tried to, or the signing of Murillo means that they're having to, again, alter their style. We talk about Brennan Johnson, Morgan Gibbs-White. They thrived at the tail end of last season playing on the counter-attack, because they've got great pace and they've got the ability to beat a man 1v1, which enables them to get in behind. And I think the signing of Murillo, the signing of Sangare, signals a kind of change to a more possession-based game. Now, whether they're going to have to adjust again mid-season like they did last year, we'll wait to find out. But Murillo's one where when he gets the ball, he will try and carry it through midfield. So that'll be a question mark for Villa at the weekend. Does Ollie Watkins follow him? Does Moussa Diaby follow him in? Or is it down to one of the midfielders to step in and close him down? Because I think he will like to carry the ball forward. So the upside of that is that he creates an extra man in midfield when he comes forward. But obviously the downside is if we're able to get around him and take the ball off him, we can cause mistakes, which is something that has happened already this season for him. So, you know, there's upside and a downside really for Murillo's game. But I think they've kind of alternated between, I think Ola Aina started last week at left back and Toffolo's played. Serge Aurier's played at right back. They've got Nico Williams as well. You think but perhaps defensively that might be their weakest area of the pitch, because when you look at the three in midfield, Sangare, Mangala, Dominguez, they're actually pretty solid in that midfield. And I know Sangare's Forest fans might say, well, he's not quite settled as quickly as he should have done. But these things take time, as we're finding out with some of Villa's new players as well. So I think defensively, you might think that. I think in January they are going to look for another centre back to partner Murillo. I think that is an area that they are going to be looking to strengthen in the January transfer window. And the other question mark that Forest have got right now is the goalkeeper situation.
I was going to ask you that. I'm not convinced by Turner at all.
No, I mean he had I think it was Brentford game, Nottingham Forest against Brentford, where there were a couple of questionable moments, and then the decision, the shocking decision against Liverpool, which caused a goal. And they did get a goalkeeper in the summer, another goalkeeper in Odysseus Vlachodimos or Vlachodimos, but he's got Champions League experience, so he's not been bought to sit on the bench essentially. So
he might play. I think he might play on Sunday.
It's a big call. It's a big call for Steve Cooper, because you think about the damage potentially that might do to Matt Turner coming into the team and then dropping out. So it's a big call whether they change the goalkeeper this weekend.
I think they might. I think every time I've watched Forest, I've probably watched 4 maybe games, 90 minutes this season. And even if he hasn't been punished, Turner's done something silly in every one of those games that I've watched. He looks like he's suffering a little bit, to me, a bit of a lack of confidence, or maybe being asked to do things that he's not quite comfortable with. And the other goalkeeper has got that pedigree, and I do think he was brought in to be number one. I think they've just been waiting for kind of a time to bring him in, and I've got a feeling that mistake against Liverpool may be one mistake too many for Turner, that they may change the goalkeeper. I think this game might be a little bit like the Wolves away game. I don't think there'll be loads of goals in it. I think it'll be relatively tight. But I think the difference is now, in that Wolves game, Villa had 2 players that played that day who weren't fully fit, Kamara and Diaby. Diaby, every time he sprinted, was holding his back. As far as we know, those players are fit for this one. So I make Villa favourites to win, but I don't think it'll be a stroll in the park.
Yeah, I make Villa favourites to win. I think the question mark that I have is around the defensive selections, just because he's kind of tended to favour the 3 of Torres, Carlos and Konsa away from home. I just wonder whether he'll go for that again away from home. What do you think?
Not sure against Forest whether he'll feel the need to. I think against Wolves, with the extra height, they're a pretty physical team with Dawson and whatnot. Maybe that was the reason he did it. And I thought Carlos was Villa's best player actually that day against Wolves. I was at that game, but not sure. I think there's 10 that are picked for this game. It is that last space, but I actually think that last space could quite easily be a toss up between Zaniolo, Bailey, or, stupidly it sounds, Carlos. I feel like any 3 of those could end up taking that 11th place, but I think the 10 is kind of set in stone. Is it necessary to do that against Nottingham Forest? What we did against Wolves, that would be my query. Do you think it is necessary? Bailey couldn't have done much else to try and get in the team in recent weeks, in fairness to him. But then also, sometimes when you've got that 12th man coming on and it's working well, you kind of want him to stay as that 12th man because it's working.
Yeah, I guess there's no doubt that Leon Bailey is playing very well at the moment. I think, bizarrely, the issue that he's got is not so much his form, but it's the form of other players around him. Because when Bailey plays, he'll come on or he'll start. And for me, and maybe Unai Emery as well, his best position is high and wide on the right-hand side. So when he plays high and wide on the right-hand side, it means John McGinn has to switch position over to the left. Is that his best position? And when Bailey plays high and wide on the right, that means that Matty Cash has to play low as the right back, and then he has to pick and choose his moments to go forward. And the way he's kind of got around that, Unai Emery, is playing Kamara in build-up as the right-sided centre-back and enabling Matty Cash to fly and getting the best out of him attacking-wise. So I think there's no doubt that Bailey is playing really well at the moment. But when he plays in his best position, it means that other players have to kind of switch at their role, and then are you getting the best out of those players as well? So it's an interesting decision that he's got to make, and a difficult one, because, I mean, for me, Matty Cash, it feels like he does an equally as good a job picking and choosing when to go forward if he's playing low as when he's playing high. But then switching McGinn over to the left-hand side, is that his best position? Are we getting the most out of him in that position? And then, the alternative position for Bailey is playing as that second striker, but you're not going to drop Moussa Diaby. So it's tough for him unless he comes in on the left-hand side. And again, is that his best position?
He has had some good games on the left, in fairness, Bailey. He played on the left in Europe a few weeks ago at home and was pretty effective in the second half. And I remember him having a game against Brentford under Danks and Cutler, playing on the left where he was pretty good as well. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm just thinking out loud now, but like Bailey isn't really an away player. He's always been better at Villa Park. Maybe this isn't the game to put him in. And I was just thinking about, do you need Carlos in this game? Well, Forest have been playing with Chris Wood up front, so maybe we do need Carlos for this game because he is the more physical of the centre halves that we have at our disposal, and maybe it is a chance to move Cash forward and play Cash in that right hand side role again, and just be a little bit more adept on the break. Although you spoke about Forest changing their playing style, they do still have some handy players on the break. So look, Emery will do what he does, and whatever he does will be right because it's Unai Emery, and we have no right to question him whatsoever. But that is really the only space that's up for debate, isn't it, at the moment with the players that we've got out injured? There's nothing else that's going to change.
No, and in some ways that's a great thing because
that's brilliant.
We've obviously got injuries at the moment, so it might, Unai Emery's job might be a little bit more difficult if there were players not performing and he was having to rotate to try and find that formula. And we're missing obviously starters who are injured, but the fact that everybody is performing at such a high level, it makes Unai Emery's job so much easier. And the fact that when he does make changes, when we've seen in Europe when he's made changes, the players coming in are able to carry out the jobs that he wants them to do. And it's almost seamless when players are coming in and out of the side. Everybody knows their job, which is such an amazing position to be in and such a positive going forward. So it's such a good thing that we're only quibbling over one position, and it's essentially a 50-50 toss-up as to who starts. And it's a kind of horses for courses thing now. When you look at individual battles, Unai Emery will be picking the players that he thinks can win that individual battle in that certain scenario. So it's a great position. And as you say, every decision that Unai Emery makes, you have to back right now.
Yeah, we've got some stuff in the chat. John says Villa need to win these games to be contenders. If Newcastle beat Arsenal and we win, it's top 4 for Villa. 78 Numnut says, as fans, we have to remember where we have gone from. Where we have, I think you've meant to say, come from the previous drab performance, lack of goals, and appreciate what we have at the moment. It's glorious. Paul Enigard is predicting Villa to win 3-0. He's watching us from the Faroe Islands. Well in, Paul. Sorry if I've butchered your name. I do apologise. Tony Cashin says, I love this podcast content. You should be very proud. Please keep going. We will do so. We'll do it for you, Tony, even if we're not doing it for anyone else. What else have we got here? We've got Matthew Mullins. Looking forward to the game. Will be tough, but we are playing so well at the moment. I think we can win it. We have so much quality across the team, and we have a master tactician at the helm. I think it'd be very difficult for anyone in the country or the world even to disagree with that comment there that you've made, Matthew. Again, we don't do score predictions anymore, and Villa keep churning out the results, so we'll continue to not do the score predictions. But Dave Reed, I'm looking for a key man in this game for you.
Key man's going to be Matty Cash, going back to his former club. I think the Nottingham Forest fans still love him.
Yeah.
For what he gave them in a Nottingham Forest shirt. I think he'll enjoy going back there. He'll enjoy the atmosphere. He'll know exactly what to expect, and whatever position he's playing at the weekend, he'll be the key man for Villa.
Yep, I chose the key man as Emi Martinez last week, and he scored no own goal. So that was a brilliant pick from me. And he did go on to win best goalkeeper in the world. So it was one of their game didn't transpire against Luton as I thought it would. I thought he might have to make a big save at a crucial time.
On the pod last week, I said I'd love us to keep a clean sheet, and then it was just a comedy-o goal. A comedy-o goal at the end.
Impossible. Ezri Konsa didn't fancy the clean sheet, did he? When he knocked that header back. I was actually going to pick Matty Cash as well, because wherever he plays, whether it be at right back or whether it be at right midfield, I think he'll be integral to what Villa do going forward. And I think he's really been good this season, Matty Cash. Actually, I think he's been brilliant. I've got to give some credit to Luca Dean as well. I was critical of him at the start of the season with some of the goals we conceded and some of his defending. But I think as the season's gone on, he's playing every week. He's getting in his rhythm. He's been a really effective player. I think both fullbacks have been really good over the last month or so, Matty Cash and Luca Dean. So hats on to both of them. Hats off, even not hats on. Hats off to both of them, and hopefully they continue the form on Sunday. Thanks ever so much to those that have joined us in the live chat and had a little chat with us. We do appreciate it, and thanks to everyone that will go on and watch the show as well, wherever you are taking in the show, whether it be via video on YouTube or audio, wherever you get your podcast. Just do all the nice things for us that you can do, liking, commenting, subscribing, all those good things. If you could do that for us, it would really, really help us. We didn't hit the likes target of 500 in the last video, so I'll set a slightly lower one of 400. If you're watching now, it's very easy just to tap the thumbs up button. Do that for us, give us a like, and we'll aim for 400 likes. Greg and myself will be back next week with some content, and then of course Dave and I will preview we've got a European game next week, and we'll try and do something around that as well. If we can, we'll try and get some content up on the channel. Thanks for all the support. Do all the stuff that I've just mentioned. Have a great weekend, and up the Villa.